My name is Sloan Mercer, and I'm 32 years old. I didn't grow up with much, but I grew up with one rule. If your name is on it, you take care of it. Your bill, your responsibility, your mess, your broom, your lease, your problem. For the last 4 years, my name has been the only one on the lease to a 2-bedroom apartment that eats $2,000 out of my bank account every month. It's not glamorous. The view is a parking lot, the appliances sigh when they start, and the hallway smells like someone always just burned something in the oven. But it's mine. My payment history, my deposit, my credit score on the line. 8 months ago, I let Dylan move in. He showed up with 3 duffel bags, a beat-up guitar, and plans for a business he was always about to start. The word startup came out of his mouth like it was a magic spell that excused everything. His patchy work history, his between contracts months, the way his savings account seemed to exist only in theory. We agreed, his word, not mine, that he'd cover $400 a month toward groceries and utilities while he saved aggressively for the business. I covered the rent, the security of the roof over both our heads, the emergency fund, the boring grown-up ballast no one ever toasts. He paid the $400 most months, usually late, always with a speech about how grateful he was that I believed in his vision. I used to smile and say, just send it before the due date next time, okay? Then I'd go back to my spreadsheet, color coding cells, making sure the math still worked. That's what I do when I'm anxious. I balance numbers. I line them up until they behave. About 6 weeks ago, the numbers stopped being the only thing that felt off. It started small. Dylan's phone that used to be face up on the coffee table suddenly lived glued to his hand, screen tilted away. His networking drinks with coworkers became late work sessions with a few of us from the team. He came home smelling like bars and perfume he said was just the air freshener in the Uber. I'm not the jealous type. I don't go through phones. I don't interrogate people about every name in their notifications. I told myself everyone needs their own life, their own friends, their own space. Then Thursday happened. I was standing at the stove, stirring pasta sauce, the apartment full of garlic and simmering tomatoes. Dishwasher set to run at 12:01 a.m. for off-peak rates, timer already programmed. A podcast murmured in the background about compound interest and retirement accounts, my idea of comfort noise. My phone buzzed on the counter. Dylan, hey, staying at a friend's place tonight, don't wait up. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and read it twice. A friend's place. Okay, not great, not ideal, but fine. I texted back, which friend? He took a while to answer, long enough for the sauce to thicken and the doubt to thicken with it. Finally, just a coworker. We're grinding on a project. Late night. I'll crash on their couch. There. Anyone. No one. Vague enough to be harmless if you didn't think too hard. I tried not to. I wrapped his portion of dinner, put it in the fridge, and went to bed alone. I told myself it was what adults did, trusted until they had a reason not to. Friday morning, his side of the bed was still untouched. No note, no text, no nothing. I brushed my teeth, put on my blazer, and checked my phone again before leaving for work. No messages. I sent one. Everything okay? The text delivered. The little read notification popped up. Then nothing. Hours later, around lunch, he finally wrote back. Project's intense. Might stay another night. Don't stress. Don't stress. I stared at those 2 words longer than the rest of the message. Stress is what happens when you can see the math starting to slip, but you can't prove it yet. When things don't add up, but nobody's handed you the missing numbers. I went home that night to the same quiet apartment, heated up leftover pasta, ate alone, scrolled mindlessly, told myself again that I was being paranoid. People pull long hours. People crash at coworkers' places. It happens. At 8:47 p.m., my phone buzzed again. Dylan, I'll be at her place tonight. Don't wait up. Her. Not my friend's place anymore. Not their couch. A pronoun with a body and a bed behind it. He didn't bother with a name. He didn't bother with a lie that made me feel better. He just slid the mask off and texted me like I was logistics, not a person. I read it once, twice, 3 times. I felt something inside me go very, very still. There are moments in your life when you feel your tolerance finally hit its limit, like a rope snapping under weight it's been holding for too long. This was mine. All the late payments, all the I'll make it up to you, all the vague coworkers and networking drinks, suddenly they weren't isolated glitches. They were a pattern, and that text was the summary line at the bottom of the spreadsheet. He'd chosen another woman's apartment over the one I paid for. I typed back 2 words. Have fun. I stared at them for a second, then hit send. He heart-reacted the message. Of course he did. I set the phone down and walked through the apartment, room by room. It looked like our place. His shoes by the door, his hoodies draped over the back of the couch, his protein shaker on the counter, his razor in my bathroom. But as I moved, I realized how much of it was actually just mine. My name on the lease, my name on the utilities, my money in the deposit, my credit backing the whole setup. Dylan didn't live in our home. He lived in my stability. And he'd just told me he'd be at her place tonight. Fine. Let him stay there. I grabbed my keys and went to the dollar store on the corner. The cashier didn't blink when I loaded 10 jumbo trash bags onto the counter, along with a cheap roll of masking tape and a Sharpie. Big clean out? She asked. You have no idea, I said. Back home, I pulled the first trash bag off the roll, shook it open, and stood in my bedroom. I started with the closet. His clothes took up 75% of the hanging space. Hoodies, graphic tees, too tight jeans he swore were motivation, button-downs with sleeves rolled sloppily to the elbow. I didn't fold anything. I wasn't malicious, but I wasn't tender either. I grabbed armfuls and dropped them into the bags, one after another. Every hanger I freed felt like reclaiming square footage of my life. Next, his shoes. Sneakers lined up under my dresses, boots shoved into corners. All of them went into another bag. Bathroom. His razor, his shaving cream, his cologne, his hair products that somehow cost more than my skincare, his toothbrush, into a bag. Living room. His Xbox, his jumbled controllers, his stack of games, that ugly throw blanket he insisted we keep because it had sentimental value, into bags. Kitchen. The juicer he'd used once during a 3-day cleanse that lasted exactly 1 day. His favorite mug. The protein powder tub that left dust on my counters. Into bags. I moved methodically, quiet except for the rustle of plastic and the occasional clink of something hitting something else. It didn't feel like rage. Rage is hot, wild. This was cold, focused. The part of me that pays bills on time and schedules dental cleanings had taken over. If it was his, it went in a bag. On the coffee table, his iPad blinked awake when I nudged it. No passcode. Of course not. He trusted me. That irony did not escape me. I opened the calendar app. There it was, an event from last week titled Leg Day Breeze. I clicked into it, address included. Bree, not a coworker I'd ever heard of. I took a photo of the address with my phone, then powered the iPad back down. For once, his carelessness worked in my favor. It took 3 full bags before I felt like I'd made a dent. 5 before his presence in the apartment shrank to almost nothing. By the time I tied off the 8th, my arms ached and my shoulders burned, but the apartment felt lighter, airier, like it could breathe without his clutter. I slid the bags near the front door, lined up like sad, overstuffed soldiers. 8 bags of his life, packaged and ready for delivery. I checked the time, 10:12 p.m. Plenty of night left. I hauled the first 2 bags down to my car, popped the trunk, and shoved them in. 2 more trips, then another. 8 bags and his guitar across the back seat. The car sagged a little under the weight. I pulled up Bree's address on my phone and started driving. Her building was nicer than mine. Newer construction, cleaner lines, better landscaping. The kind of place with key fob entry and soft jazz playing in the lobby. I wasn't going inside, though. I didn't need to. I parked on the street, lugged the first 2 bags up to the front door, and found the panel of buzzers. Her last name matched the calendar entry. B. Harris, 4B. Of course, she lived on the 4th floor. Luckily, there was a small alcove off the lobby just before the locked doors. A perfect little corner. Trip by trip, I stacked Dylan's bags there. 8 in total, his guitar propped against them like a sad exclamation point. The pile looked almost intentional, like an offering. I dug in my purse for something to write on and came up with a crumpled grocery receipt. I smoothed it against the wall and uncapped the Sharpie. On the back, in thick black letters, I wrote, "He's all yours. Enjoy the hair products. S." I tucked the note where it couldn't be missed, taped to the top bag. For a second, I just stood there, looking at the pile. 8 months of gradually expanding presence, condensed into trash bags and a single sentence. No shouting, no plates thrown, just logistics and consequences. On the drive home, my phone lit up in the passenger seat. One new notification from my banking app. The rent payment had gone through as scheduled. My rent, my apartment. At 11:32 p.m., I sat at my kitchen table and Googled 24-hour locksmith near me. By midnight, I had one booked for a late-night lock change. As I confirmed the appointment, a calm settled over me, the kind that comes when a decision has finally clicked into place. Dylan had chosen her place. I just made sure all of him went there too. By morning, my locks would be different. By morning, so would my life. Stop! Ben, Danoi. Continue ChatGPT, Danoi. The locksmith showed up just after 12:20 a.m., a compact guy in a navy jacket with dark circles under his eyes and a toolbox in hand. Late one, he said, glancing at the door. Lose your keys? Something like that, I replied. I stepped aside and let him in. He didn't ask more questions, just set down his bag, pulled on gloves, and started working the lock with a quiet efficiency I appreciated. Metal clicked and clinked, screws came out, new ones went in. It was like watching someone surgically remove an old problem and replace it with something cleaner. How long have you lived here? He asked conversationally as he worked. 4 years. He whistled softly. You must really like the place. I thought about Dylan's bags stacked in the lobby of a woman he'd called her, and my own kitchen cabinets lined with mugs I'd bought one at a time on sale. I like knowing it's mine, I said. He gave me a quick, understanding nod. Fair enough. 20 minutes and one $180 charge later, I had a new set of keys on my ring and an old lock sitting in his toolbox like a pulled tooth. You'll want to test it yourself, he said, stepping back. I locked and unlocked the door twice. The bolt slid smoothly, cleanly. My fingers memorized the new pattern. This is good, I said. Thank you. Anytime. He hesitated, then added, if this is about someone who used to have a key, good call. You'd be surprised how many people don't take that step. I almost laughed. Yeah, I've learned a lot about what people assume they're entitled to. He didn't pry, just tipped 2 fingers to his forehead and left. The new lock clicked shut behind him with a sound that felt like a full sentence. Silence settled over the apartment, the good kind. I showered, braided my hair, and slid into bed alone. The other half of the mattress felt too empty at first, like a missing tooth your tongue can't stop touching. But exhaustion and adrenaline wrestled until finally, sleep won. It felt like I'd just closed my eyes when my phone started vibrating on the nightstand. Buzz, 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 buzz. I squinted at the screen. 1:07 a.m. Dylan, incoming call. I watched it ring until it went to voicemail. Immediately it lit up again. 1:08 a.m. Missed call. 1:09 a.m. Missed call. 1:10 a.m. Missed call. He was persistent, if nothing else. On the 4th try, I flicked the side button and set the phone to Do Not Disturb. The room dropped back into blissful quiet. For the first time in months, I chose not to jump just because someone else was tugging a string. In the morning, the notification screen looked like an accusation. 23 missed calls, 14 new texts. I scrolled through them with the detached curiosity of someone reading a stranger's drama. Dylan. Hey, why is my key not working? Are you home? Seriously, this isn't funny. Where's my stuff? Sloan, answer me. Did you do something with my things? Why is my guitar gone? Open the door. We need to talk. I'm in the hallway. I know you can hear me. Okay, this is messed up. If you moved my stuff, that's illegal or something. Are you seriously doing this right now? Sloan. The last one was just my name. No punctuation, no context. Just a naked appeal. In the past, that would have been enough to crack me. I would have opened the door, listened to the explanations, let my boundaries erode in the flood of his emotions. This time, I put the phone down, padded to the kitchen, and started the coffee maker. I moved through my morning routine, shower, moisturizer, hair, makeup, as if nothing had happened except a lock change and a very late night of spring cleaning. Only after I was dressed, mug in hand, did I sit at the table and answer him. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard for a second. Then I typed, "You said you'd be at her place. I helped you move in." I hit send. The response was almost instant. Dylan, what are you talking about? Where did you move my stuff? Who is her? I exhaled through my nose, a humorless little huff. He couldn't even admit it in the text thread I could scroll back through. I took a screenshot of his message from the night before. I'll be at her place tonight. Don't wait up, and sent that. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. He was typing, deleting, typing again. I imagined him pacing wherever he was, trying to find the version of the story that made him the victim with the least effort. Finally, Dylan, that's not what I meant, and you know it. We were just hanging out. I crash on couches sometimes. You're blowing this way out of proportion. I stared at the words, feeling a quiet, spreading calm. This was the script. I'd seen enough friends run it with their own partners to recognize the beats, minimize, deflect, accuse the other person of being crazy or dramatic or overreacting. Only this time, I didn't have to pretend I didn't see it. Me. You named her place. You told me not to wait up. Twice. Your stuff is at her building. In the lobby. Ask the front desk for the bags by 4B. Sending that felt like hitting submit on a form I'd taken my time filling out. The reply came in all caps. Dylan, are you kidding me? You can't just dump my things somewhere. What if someone steals them? This is insane, Sloan. You're acting crazy. Open the door. We're talking about this face to face. I glanced at the door like it had raised its hand. The new lock stared back, mute and sturdy. I typed one more time. Me. There's nothing to talk about. You chose where you wanted to be. I just moved your belongings to match. Then I put the phone down again and finished my coffee. On my way out, I checked the doorbell camera feed from the building's app. The video from One Shock AM showed him rattling the doorknob, then trying his key, then swearing under his breath. At one point, he just leaned his forehead against the door, shoulders slumped, playing the picture of a defeated, blindsided boyfriend. If I hadn't had his text in black and white, maybe I would have believed it. Maybe I would have looked at that video and thought, God, what if I'm being too harsh? Receipts are a wonderful thing. By the time I drove to work, my phone had cooled down to silence. I pretended I didn't notice the way my heart sped up with every new notification buzz from group chats and email, half expecting his name to appear in every banner. I made it through most of the day before the storm shifted directions. Around 3 p.m., an unknown number flashed across my screen. I stepped into an empty conference room and answered. Hello? What the hell do you think you're doing to my son? A woman's voice snapped, sharp enough to cut glass. I didn't recognize her at first. Then the cadence clicked. I'd heard it before in the background of Dylan's calls, scolding him about missing a family dinner, reminding him about a cousin's birthday. Who is this? I asked, even though I already knew. You know exactly who this is. This is Dylan's mother. Of course. I closed my eyes and counted to 3. The way I do when a spreadsheet formula errors out and I have to figure out which cell blew everything up. How can I help you, Mrs. Hayes? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. You can start by telling me why my son's things are piled up in some stranger's hallway and why his key doesn't work on the door to the home he shares with you. There it was, his home. I pictured the rent debited from my account each month, the lease in my name only, the 4 years I'd kept this place afloat before Dylan ever dragged his duffel bags across the threshold. Your son doesn't live here anymore, I said calmly. He told me he'd be staying at another woman's place. I believed him. I moved his belongings to match his new arrangement. That is not your decision to make, she snapped. Dylan told me you locked him out with no warning, threw his life onto the street like garbage. Into the lobby of his girlfriend's building, I corrected. Not the street. She is not his girlfriend, she shot back, outraged. They're just friends. He said she has an extra room he can use to work sometimes. You're blowing everything out of proportion. There it was again. That phrase. Like they all read the same manual. Your son texted me, I said. He wrote, I'll be at her place tonight. Don't wait up. He told me that twice. I have the messages. If he wanted to sleep at her place and keep all his things at mine, that was a fantasy he should have kept in his own head. He made a mistake, she insisted. Young people make mistakes. You don't punish them by making them homeless. That apartment is his home, too. He's not on the lease, I said. He never was. I've been paying the full rent for 4 years. He contributed $400 a month toward groceries and utilities and called it saving for his business. Legally, he was a guest who chose to stay at another woman's apartment. Guests don't get keys forever. There was a pause, a sputter on the other end of the line. Do you hear yourself? She demanded finally. You sound so cold. He gave you 2 years of his life and you throw him out over one misunderstanding? If it was a misunderstanding, it was one he'd carefully scheduled and repeated. This isn't about being cold, I replied. It's about boundaries. He made a series of choices. I responded to them. You can't just lock someone out, she said, changing tactics. That's illegal. I'm pretty sure it's illegal. He has rights as a tenant. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I pulled my composure around me like a blazer. Then he should probably talk to a lawyer, I said. And maybe an actual tenant lawyer will explain that without his name on the lease, without him paying rent, he's not a tenant, he's a guest. You are unbelievable, she hissed. I raised my son to be loyal and generous, and this is how you repay him? You're heartless, Sloan. I pictured Dylan's credit card receipts I'd found crumpled in his pockets, the nights he'd assured me he was just grabbing a beer with the guys, while some woman named Bry smiled from his Instagram likes. I'm done repaying him, I said simply. He can take that up with the woman whose place he's at now. She sucked in a sharp breath. You will regret this, she said, voice low. You cannot treat my son this way and just walk away. We'll see what the apartment office says about you changing those locks. And then she hung up. I stared at my reflection in the dark conference room window for a long second. My face looked pale but steady. Eyes tired but not broken. The door to the conference room creaked open, and my coworker Jason poked his head in. Hey, sorry, he said. Didn't realize this room was booked. You okay? I slipped my phone into my pocket. Yeah, I said. Just finally taking out the trash. He chuckled, assuming I meant emails. I let him. On my drive home, I rehearsed the conversation I was sure was coming. With the apartment manager, with someone in authority telling me I'd done something wrong. Instead, when my phone rang that evening and I saw property office on the screen, the woman's voice was almost apologetic. Hi, Ms. Mercer, she said. Sorry to bother you. We've had a situation here today. A woman and her son came in earlier claiming there was a domestic dispute and asking to be let into what they said was their apartment. They said he lived there, but when I asked for a copy of the lease with his name on it, they couldn't provide one. I leaned against the kitchen counter and closed my eyes. Let me guess, I said. Dylan and his mother? That's what the sign-in sheet says, she confirmed. I just wanted to check. Is he authorized on your lease? No, I said. He never was. Okay, she said, professional tone returning. That's what I thought. I told them we couldn't let anyone in who wasn't on the lease or specifically authorized by the leaseholder. They weren't happy about it. I can imagine, I murmured. They may try to cause trouble, she warned. He mentioned something about illegal eviction. I just wanted to get your version before we have any more contact. I told her briefly about the texts, the other woman's place, the new locks. Kept my voice even, factual, stripped of the hurt. Thank you for letting me know, she said when I finished. For what it's worth, you're well within your rights. We won't be giving them access. After we hung up, I stood in the middle of my kitchen, listening to the hum of the fridge and the tick of the cheap wall clock. The world had not ended. No one had come to drag me out of my home. The only thing that had really changed was that the person willing to disrespect me no longer held a key to my door. My phone buzzed on the counter again. Dylan, I can't believe you're doing this after everything. We need to talk like adults. I took a slow breath and typed one final message. Me, you told me you'd be at another woman's place. Twice. I believed you and adjusted accordingly. This is me talking like an adult. Then I set the phone down, turned off the ringer, and walked away. Somewhere under the fear and the anger, something else began to take root. Small, fragile, but unmistakable. Relief. The relief didn't last long. Saturday morning, I was folding laundry when the doorbell camera pinged. Motion detected. Front door. My stomach tightened, not in fear, but in annoyance. I tapped the app. There he was. Dylan, in a wrinkled t-shirt and joggers, hair messier than usual, standing at my door like someone expecting a rescue. He tried his key again, like the lock would magically feel sentimental and let him in. When it didn't, he slapped his palm against the door in frustration. Sloan, he shouted, open up! I watched him through the tiny screen. He looked smaller somehow, or maybe it was just the sudden absence of entitlement around him. Without access to my space, our space, he always called it, he seemed like a guest at a hotel with the wrong reservation. He knocked again, harder. Come on, I know you're in there. He wasn't wrong, but acknowledging him was a privilege I wasn't sure he'd earned. He switched tactics. Sloan, he said, voice softening. Can we please just talk? Just talk. I pressed the microphone button on the app. You told me you were staying at her place, I said, so stay there. He jerked back, startled. That's not... Sloan, come on, that's not what I meant. You know that's not what I meant. You said it twice. He dragged a hand down his face. It wasn't like that. God, this is so crazy. We were just hanging out, okay? She's a friend. A friend whose place you slept at for 2 nights, I said. A friend whose address you saved on your iPad calendar. His eyes flickered. A tell. Always a tell. That's not the point, he said quickly. The point is you overreacted. You moved my stuff like some psycho ex. Sloan, you dumped my things in a public hallway. A secured building hallway, I corrected. That's not the point either. It is for me. He stared at the locked door as if it had personally betrayed him. "Just open the door," he said quietly. "Please, we can work this out." "No," I said. His head snapped toward the camera. "Why?" "Because working things out requires honesty," I said. "And the first honest thing you've done in weeks was when you texted me that you'd be at her place." His jaw clenched. "You're twisting everything." "I'm just reading the messages." A long silence stretched between us. His breathing hitched, and then, right on schedule, the tears started. The first few were subtle, a blink too long, then the shoulder shake, then the wipe of his cheeks. He turned, just enough so his profile hit the camera. The perfect frame of a man wronged, abandoned, misunderstood. In the past, this would have cracked me. I would have opened the door, apologized for making him cry, let him rewrite reality until I doubted my own memory. But now? Watching him cry after choosing to sleep at another woman's apartment felt like watching someone mourn a lottery ticket they'd thrown away on purpose. "Please," he whispered, voice trembling. "I made a mistake." "You made several," I said. He went still at that, and then the switch flipped. Tears vanished like they'd been clicked off. "You're unbelievable," he snapped. "You're acting insane. Do you hear yourself? This isn't normal behavior. Trying to talk your way out of your own actions isn't normal behavior either," I said. "God," he shouted. "This is what I mean. You always think you're some moral judge, like you're better than everyone because you have your stupid spreadsheets and your boring little routines and your—" I muted the camera before he finished. There was only so much noise I needed to allow into my life today. The feed showed him pacing, muttering, throwing his hands up at the ceiling like it owed him an apology. When he realized I wasn't responding, he kicked the bottom of the door, not enough to damage it, just enough to make a point, and stormed off down the hallway. I watched until he turned the corner and disappeared. Only then did I unmute the feed. The silence in my apartment felt like a warm bath. 2 hours later, the doorbell rang again. I checked the app expecting Dylan. Instead, his mother. Perfect. She was dressed like she was going to Sunday service. Pearls, cardigan, pressed slacks, but her expression could have soured milk. She tried the doorknob, then knocked sharply. "Sloan, open this door right now." I pressed the microphone button. "No. You will open this door," she insisted. "We need to talk like adults." I was starting to think that line was genetic. "What would you like to discuss?" I asked. "Why you think it's acceptable to destroy my son's life." I sat down on my couch, crossed my legs, and rested my phone on my knee. "I didn't destroy anything," I said. "I just stopped subsidizing his choices." "That is not how relationships work," she snapped. "You are supposed to support each other." "I did," I said, "for 2 years. Financially, emotionally, logistically, I covered the rent, the bills, the stability." "He covered what, exactly?" She bristled. "He contributed. He told me he paid half." I let out a quiet laugh. "He paid $400 a month for groceries and utilities. The rent is $2,100. You do the math." She froze. The math spoke for itself. "He was saving," she tried weakly, "for his business." "There is no business," I said. "There was never a business, just excuses." She shook her head, dismissing that. "He told me you locked him out illegally. You can't do that. That is a crime." "He's not on the lease," I said. "He's not a tenant." "That doesn't matter." "It does to the law." Her jaw clenched. "You will regret this. You can't treat someone you love like this." "He texted me that he'd be at another woman's apartment," I said calmly. "If he wanted to stay with her, that's fine. But I'm not housing someone who treats me like a storage unit." "You're heartless," she whispered. "Absolutely heartless." "And you're enabling him," I said. "He can stay with the woman he chose, or he can go home with you. Either way, it's not my door he needs to knock on." For a moment, she just stared into the camera, eyes tight with fury. Then she pulled back, squared her shoulders, and stormed off. I watched until she was gone. By Sunday afternoon, the messages from Dylan slowed. The ones from his mother didn't. She emailed. She called. She left voicemails containing everything from passive-aggressive disappointment to full-volume accusations of cruelty. Then, late that evening, a new notification appeared. "Unknown number. Hello, this is Officer Ramirez with the City Police. We received a report of a possible illegal eviction." I felt the calm slide over me again. Of course. Of course, this was where we were going. I straightened my posture, lifted my chin, and answered the call. "Hello, officer," I said. "I'd be happy to explain everything." And I was. Because for the first time in this entire relationship, I had every receipt. He had none. Officer Ramirez had a steady, measured voice, the kind people use when they've seen enough chaos to know not to take the first story they hear at face value. Ma'am, he said, we got a report from a Dylan Hayes stating he was unlawfully removed from the residence he shares with you. We just need to confirm what happened. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Of course, I have documentation. He paused. There is no sound quite like the respectful silence of someone who knows they're talking to the prepared party in a conflict. What documentation do you have? He asked. A lease with only my name on it, I said. Receipts showing I've paid the full rent for 4 years. A record of Dylan contributing $400 toward groceries and utilities, not rent, and screenshots of him texting me that he would be staying at another woman's place. Twice. A faint rustle on the other end. Probably him adjusting his stance. Could you show us the lease? He asked. Of course. Would you like me to come downstairs, or will you come up? We're already in the lobby, he said. We can meet you at your door. Give me 30 seconds. I gathered the lease folder, the one I kept neatly in a labeled binder in the hall cabinet, grabbed my phone, and walked to the door. When I opened it, 2 officers stood there. Officer Ramirez, older, calm. His partner, younger, trying hard to maintain a straight face. Afternoon, Ramirez said. Afternoon, I replied. Here's the lease. They looked it over. My name, my signature, my rent. No Dylan anywhere. Then I handed them my phone with the messages highlighted. I'll be at her place tonight. Don't wait up. Twice. The younger cop's eyebrows rose. Just a fraction. Enough. Ramirez nodded slowly. And the belongings? In the lobby of the building whose address he provided in his calendar, I said. Bagged, clearly marked, not damaged. That's organized, the younger officer said. I'm a project manager, I said. It's what I do. Both officers suppressed a smile. Ramirez closed the folder. Ma'am, you're on solid ground. He has no tenant rights here. He doesn't pay rent. He admitted via text that he chose to stay somewhere else. There's no illegal eviction. Thank you, I said. He gave me a long, assessing look, the kind that comes from having handled more than a few messy breakups. Just between us, he said quietly. I'd have done the same. His partner nodded. Same. They left with nothing else needed from me. For the first time in days, my chest loosened. My lungs remembered how to expand all the way. The police were gone. The drama was not. Monday morning, the text began again, but not from Dylan. From mutual friends. It started subtle. Emma. Hey girl, just checking in. Heard things got intense with you and Dylan. You okay? Then less subtle. Mara. Dylan told us you threw his stuff out? Like out, onto the street? Then accusatory. Kevin. Why didn't you tell anyone you were kicking him out? That's cold, Sloan. I sat at my desk, swiveling slightly in my chair, scrolling through a parade of assumptions disguised as concern. Of course he was telling people I threw him out. Of course he didn't mention the part where he threw the relationship out first. I started responding one by one. Not explanations, evidence. Screenshots. Message threads. His words, not mine. I didn't editorialize. I didn't rant. I didn't insult him. I simply sent them his text saying he'd be at her place. Twice. The reactions came almost instantly. Emma, oh. Mara, wow, he didn't mention that. Kevin, my bad, that's different. Yes, it was always different when the truth wasn't scrubbed with his version of events. By lunchtime, the wave of judgment had faded to silence. But silence wasn't the same as peace. Because at 2:17 p.m., my phone buzzed with a different message. One from the last person I wanted to hear from. Dylan's mother again. Mrs. Hayes, I cannot believe you called the police on my son. You are unstable. This behavior is dangerous. You need help. I took a long sip of my iced coffee, let the cold sting the back of my throat. Then I typed. Me. He filed the report, not me. Mrs. Hayes, he told me you escalated the situation and embarrassed him in front of law enforcement. Me. The officers reviewed the lease, the texts, and said I was within my rights. If you want, I can send you their card so you can verify. She switched tones again. This one sugary and manipulative, the way people sound when they're pretending kindness to gain access. Mrs. Hayes, sweetheart, you're making this so much harder than it needs to be. Just let him come home. Talk it out. He's hurting. I set my phone down and stared at it until the screen dimmed. Hurt was not the same as consequences. He was feeling the latter. I was finished being responsible for the former. Tuesday, things escalated in a new direction. A direction I didn't see coming. I'd just gotten back from lunch when my manager, Priya, stopped by my desk. Sloan, can you step into my office for a moment? Her tone wasn't sharp, but it was careful. I followed her in, closed the door, and sat across from her. She folded her hands on the desk. I got an email this morning, she said gently, about you. Cold washed down my spine, settling like frost along my ribs. From who? I asked, though I already suspected. She turned her monitor toward me. The sender line confirmed it. Dylan Hayes. Subject: concerning behavior of employee Sloan Mercer. My stomach dropped, but not from fear, from fury. The email was long, dramatic, full of phrases like emotional instability, violent outbursts, and mental health crisis. He wrote that he was deeply concerned for her coworkers' safety and felt obligated to alert management before something terrible happened. There were even lines implying I'd threatened him. My jaw clenched so hard it ached. Priya watched me quietly. I wanted to let you read it before you responded. I nodded slowly. Thank you. He's lying. I assumed so, she said. You've worked here 6 years. You've never raised your voice in the office, much less threatened anyone. I pulled out my phone and opened the folder of screenshots I'd organized. The texts, the timeline, the proof. Here's what actually happened, I said. I explained everything. Not the emotional parts, I didn't need pity, but the factual, date-stamped truth. When I finished, Priya sighed. Document everything, she said quietly. He's desperate. People do desperate things when they lose access to comfort. I know, I said. She gave me a sympathetic half-smile. For what it's worth. I'm glad you're taking care of yourself. I walked out of her office with my spine straighter than when I'd walked in. Dylan could lie. Dylan could smear. Dylan could beg everyone around him to play along with the narrative where he was the victim in the story he'd authored. But he could not erase evidence. I had it. He didn't. By Wednesday night, I was drained. Not emotionally, surprisingly, but logistically. Fighting fiction with fact took time, screenshots, timestamps, restraint. It was like filing a tax audit for someone else's mess. When I got home, I heated leftovers, curled up on the couch, and let my brain go soft for a bit. I'd almost relaxed when the doorbell camera pinged again. I exhaled sharply. Not Dylan this time. Not his mother. A different face. Older, tight-lipped, grieving something she hadn't lost, but thought she was entitled to. It was Dylan's mother again. But this time, she wasn't angry. She was crying. Big, performative sobs. The kind of sobs people make when they're used to it being a conversation starter. She leaned close to the camera, hands clasped dramatically. Sloan, please, please, we need to talk. I pressed the microphone button. No. Please, she insisted, wiping tears with the side of her hand. My son is hurting. He is depressed. He hasn't eaten properly for days. He's not sleeping. You can't just abandon someone like that. He abandoned me first, I said. This isn't about blame, she cried. It's about compassion. Compassion comes after accountability, I said. He hasn't even acknowledged what he did. She stared into the camera like she couldn't believe I was refusing to crumble. Sloan, she whispered, voice trembling, what if he does something drastic? What if he hurts himself? That'll be on your conscience. There it was. The nuclear emotional weapon. The guilt grenade. The manipulation I'd felt coming miles away. I inhaled slowly, grounding myself. If you genuinely think he's a danger to himself, I said, get him professional help, a therapist, a crisis hotline, a hospital, but don't put that responsibility on me. You don't care, she spat suddenly. You're cold, you're heartless. No, I said, I'm done being controlled. The shift on her face was instant. Shock, then fury. You'll regret this, she whispered. Then she stormed off, down the hall, out of view. The camera feed went still. I sat back on the couch, hands steady. A whole family had shown up to teach me regret, but all they'd taught me so far was how necessary boundaries were. Thursday morning, I woke to a message from a number I didn't recognize. It wasn't Dylan. It wasn't his mother. It was a man I hadn't met, but I knew immediately who he was. Unknown, yo, this is Ryan, the guy Dylan's been staying with, the dude you're being crazy to? You need to stop ignoring him. He's going through a lot because of you. Her place. The gym bro, the one he left my bed to go to. Now he was texting me. My laugh was sharp and humorless as I typed. Me. You wanted him. You got him. Now you deal with him. He responded instantly. Ryan. Damn. Cold. Can't believe you'd do someone you love like that. Me. He cheated. I believed him when he said he'd be at her place. That's all. Ryan. He needs help getting back on his feet. Just give him a little cash, like $2,000. Help him out. My jaw dropped. Not at the amount. At the entitlement. Me. Ask the woman he left me for. Ryan. Bro. Me. Not your bro. Lose my number. I blocked him. And that was the moment, right there, when the irritation finally melted into something else. Resolve. Because it was clear now, Dylan wasn't done escalating, which meant I needed to stop reacting and start planning. And I already knew the first step. I opened my lease folder. Current lease end date, 3 months. Time to make a quiet exit strategy. Time to move. The decision to move didn't feel dramatic. It felt clean, like choosing to wash a stain instead of pretending it wasn't there. That night, I sat cross-legged on my living room floor with my laptop open, scrolling through apartment listings. I filtered by neighborhood, then price, then distance to work. I wasn't looking for luxury, just solitude, safety. A place Dylan had never stepped foot in, where no one could rattle the doorknob and demand entry into my peace. After an hour of searching, I found a one-bedroom in a calm, tree-lined neighborhood across town. $1,850 a month. Cheaper than my current place. Hardwood floors, a small balcony, a building built in the last decade, not one hanging on by the willpower of its tenants. It wasn't glamorous, but it looked steady, predictable. I stared at the listing for a long moment. Then I clicked Schedule a Tour. The confirmation email hit my inbox immediately. Friday, 10 a.m. Good. Concrete plans calmed me. Tangible steps quieted anxiety in ways reassurance never could. Friday morning, I left work for an early break and drove to the place. The leasing agent, a woman named Riley with a bright smile and a clipboard, met me in the lobby. "Ready to see your future home?" she asked. I almost laughed. Future home. I hadn't thought of home as a future in months. Only a battle. Only a line someone kept trying to cross. "Yes," I said, "I'm ready." She took me up to the 3rd floor. The sunlight in the hallway was warm, soft, the kind of light that made space feel forgiving. When she opened the apartment door, my chest loosened. New appliances, fresh paint, quiet air that didn't smell like old smoke or someone else's cooking. "Utilities are separate," she said, "but the electricity is really efficient here, and there's a fitness room on the 1st floor." I nodded, absorbing details that felt like gold compared to the chaos Dylan had injected into my life. "I love it," I said honestly. "What's the soonest move-in date?" She checked her sheet. 6 weeks from today, if you're approved. Though, she leaned closer, conspiratorially. We often let tenants move in early if the previous person leaves ahead of schedule. My heartbeat did something unexpected, something hopeful. "So," she continued, "I'll send you the application. If everything looks good, you could get keys sooner." I smiled. "Perfect. I'd like to apply today." And I did. By Saturday, my phone buzzed with a new email. Approved. Move-in date. 6 weeks. I felt my entire body exhale. The plan settled into place. Slowly move items in small loads. Keep the apartment looking full from the outside. Don't let Dylan see patterns. Don't let anyone guess a transition is happening. Leave without an audience. Close the door behind me and never look back. Every night after work, I packed a bag or two. Books, out-of-season clothes, half my kitchen, decorative pieces Dylan never even noticed. I'd place the bags in my trunk, drive them across town, and carry them quietly upstairs to my new place. I didn't tell anyone except one friend, my emergency contact, the person who'd show up with a baseball bat or a spreadsheet depending on the crisis. "Sneaking out of your own life?" she joked when I told her my plan. "More like reclaiming it," I said. She squeezed my hand. "Good." I kept the blinds in my old apartment partially closed and positioned lamps strategically, so it still looked furnished from outside. If Dylan drove by, as he'd hinted, he'd think nothing had changed. In 6 weeks, everything would. Week 2 of the quiet move arrived with its own complications. The texts from Dylan didn't stop, they simply evolved. No more yelling, no more demands, no more open the door. His messages grew pitiful. "Dylan, I miss you. Sloan, please, just talk to me. I'm not doing well. I can't sleep. You can't just erase 2 years. Please don't abandon me." I didn't respond. Then the messages grew resentful. "Dylan, I guess this is who you really are. Real men communicate, you know. This silent treatment is emotional abuse. You're being cruel. You owe me a conversation." I still didn't respond. Then they grew dark. "Dylan, I know you're still living there. I've driven by. You think you can ignore me? I'm not going away." My stomach tightened at that one. I blocked him. He switched numbers. I blocked those. He emailed. I filtered him to spam. I didn't need courage. I needed quiet. And I was building it one box at a time. Week 3 brought the unexpected twist. A call from my property manager. "Hi, Ms. Mercer," she said. "Just a heads up. We received a call from a very upset woman claiming to be your boyfriend's mother. She was asking when your lease is up." I froze mid-step in my kitchen. "And," I said, keeping my voice even, I did not give her that information, the manager assured, but she was persistent. Then, a pause. We got another call 5 minutes later from your ex. My jaw tightened. What did he ask? I said. He wanted to know if he could take over your lease when you move out. I almost laughed. It came out as a breathy exhale instead. He can't, I said. I'm not planning to add him, and I'm not planning to renew. Yes, she said. I figured. You've been a great tenant, though. We'd be sad to lose you. Thank you, I said sincerely. I'll give proper notice. We appreciate that. And be careful. They seem determined. I hung up with my pulse thrumming. So Dylan's new tactic wasn't reconciliation. It was strategy. He and his mother wanted to predict my move, intercept it, attach themselves to the place I paid for. But miscalculation was the theme of their story. Because I was already steps ahead. Week 4 was when things spun from stressful to downright surreal. I'd just finished unloading a trunk of kitchen items at my new apartment when my phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. I ignored it. It buzzed again. Same number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Hello? Silence. Then a breath. And then, this is Dylan's brother. Of course. He jumped right in. Do you know he's been sleeping on couches for weeks? He has nowhere to go. He's miserable. He loved you. And you just threw him out like trash. I returned him to the address he chose, I said. He scoffed. That's 1 time. 2, I corrected. You are heartless. His voice sharpened. No wonder he looked elsewhere. That one stung. Just slightly. Enough to remind me how deeply manipulation can cut when it aims for insecurity. Have a nice day, I said and hung up. He tried to call back twice. Blocked. And then, in a final moment of poetic timing, my phone buzzed with a new notification. Your application for the new apartment has been approved. It felt like the universe exhaling with me. The next days were methodical. Pack, move, block numbers, screenshot everything. Keep the blinds angled. Keep my head down. The new apartment slowly filled with the life I actually wanted, piece by piece. My towels, my books, my bed frame, my dishes. The old apartment shrank around the absence of my things like skin retracting from a wound. This was ending. Quietly. Cleanly. Intentionally. And then week 5 arrived and brought the storm with it. It started with a DM request on social media from someone I didn't know. When I clicked, the message opened with 6 words that made my blood turn cold. You should know what he posted. I tapped the link. Dylan had made a long, emotional post about surviving abuse, being kicked out onto the street, losing everything, and trying to stay strong. He tagged several mutual friends. The likes were climbing. Comments poured in. You deserve better. She sounds unstable. I'm so sorry you're going through this. Can't believe she did that to you. My face went hot, anger mixing with something sharper. He wasn't done. Not even close. He was building a stage and painting me as the villain. I stared at the post for a long minute. Then I opened the folder of screenshots. His texts, his words, his choices. Receipts. Always receipts. I took a breath and started drafting my reply. Not in rage, not in hurt, but in clarity. Because this wasn't revenge. This was a correction. I didn't hit post right away. I'd learned to pause, even when the truth burned my tongue. Especially then. Instead, I stepped away from my laptop, made tea, walked the length of my apartment twice, grounding myself in the quiet. The truth didn't need adrenaline, it just needed accuracy. By the time I sat back down, my pulse was steady. I opened Dylan's post again. It was a masterpiece of selective omission, artfully crafted sentences about emotional abandonment, feeling unsafe, and having nowhere to go. He even added a photo of himself in the gym locker room, looking tragic in overhead lighting. The caption read, "Sometimes you don't realize how toxic someone is until they take everything from you. I lost my home. I lost my support. I'm trying to stay strong, but it's been hell." One particularly dramatic comment said, "She'll regret this when karma hits her." Karma. Funny how people invoke karma only when they want someone else to be punished for their own actions. I clicked into the comment box. My fingers hovered over the keys, then began typing with the calm precision of someone filling out tax paperwork. Not a single extra word. Sloan Mercer. Since we're sharing stories publicly, here's the full one. Dylan texted me, twice, telling me he would be at another woman's apartment overnight and not to wait up. I believed him. I moved his belongings to the address he chose. Our lease? Only in my name. Rent? Paid entirely by me. He was not a tenant, legally or financially. He filed a police report claiming illegal eviction. Officers reviewed the lease and the messages and confirmed no such thing occurred. Below are screenshots of his texts and the timeline. Feel free to decide for yourself. Then I attached the screenshots. All of them. The comment thread exploded, instantly. Minutes later, replies started rolling in. Wait, what? This changes everything. Bro, really? You left to stay with another girl? Dylan, this is embarrassing. Not the abuse story collapsing. She provided receipts. Where are yours? Even his own close friends chimed in. Dylan, dude, you didn't tell us that part. Man, you really messed up. I sat back, sipping my tea as the tide turned in real time. Dylan tried to respond, one shaky comment at a time, but every attempt only made things worse. Dylan, that's not what happened. You're twisting things. It was just friendship. We never even... Someone replied, then why did you say her place and don't wait up twice? Another, why didn't you tell us you weren't on the lease? Another, this looks like you used her home until you found someone new. Another, damn, she moved your stuff more respectfully than I would have. And then the fatal blow, posted by someone with a familiar username. Ryan, the gym bro. Ryan, bro, leave me out of this. We were hooking up. She knew. Don't make me look like a liar too. The thread went silent for a moment, as if the entire audience had leaned back, eyes widening, popcorn pausing halfway to their mouths. Then the comments restarted. Faster, harsher, and entirely against Dylan. He deleted his post within an hour. But the internet remembers. Screenshots, shares, archive threads. The truth had already outrun him. I didn't message him. I didn't message anyone. I didn't even smile. I just closed my laptop and exhaled. 2 days later, I ran into someone unexpected at the grocery store. A woman with a work lanyard still around her neck stopped dead in front of my cart. Sloan? I blinked. Yes? She offered a tentative smile. I'm Jenna. I work at Dylan's office. Right. The marketing assistant who'd been at his birthday dinner once. I heard what happened, she said softly. I just wanted to say something. I braced myself. Jenna leaned closer. We all knew something was up. I blinked again. What? He was always talking about that girl. Bri. She wrinkled her nose, showing people her gym pics, taking long lunches, even left early a few times to help her with something. He wasn't subtle. My jaw tightened, but only slightly. Mostly, I felt confirmation settle over me like dust. I'm sorry, Jenna said. I know this can't be easy, but if it helps, honestly, you handled this better than I would have. Thank you, I said quietly. She nodded and walked away. I stood there in the cereal aisle, hands on my cart, absorbing it. Not pain, not shock, just clarity. I'd spent months thinking I might have been blind. Turns out I'd been generous. 3 more weeks passed. The quiet move continued. My new place gained shape. Curtains hung, plates stacked, bookshelf arranged. It was starting to feel like a home someone lived in, not a place someone escaped to. Meanwhile, the old apartment grew hollow, bare walls, empty drawers, a ghost of the life I used to keep afloat. And then, finally, the day came. Final walkthrough day. The property manager met me at the old unit, clipboard in hand. You kept it in excellent condition, she said, checking boxes neatly. Honestly, you might be the cleanest tenant we've had. She snapped a photo of the untouched walls, the polished kitchen counter, the spotless bathroom. Everything looks perfect, she said. You'll get your full $2,500 security deposit back. $2,500. The amount Ryan had begged me to give Dylan. The irony hit so hard and so clean I almost laughed. She handed me the deposit confirmation and extended her hand. It was a pleasure having you, she said warmly. It was a pleasure being here, I replied. We closed the door together. She turned the key in the lock one final time. Then she handed it to me. For your records. I looked at the metal in my palm, the last symbol of a chapter I'd kept upright alone. Thank you, I said. I walked down the hallway, turned the corner, and stepped outside into sunlight. The air smelled different, lighter, as if it, too, was relieved. I got into my car, started the engine, and let it idle long enough for my phone to buzz with a new message. From Dylan. One last attempt. Dylan, where are you? We need to meet. Tomorrow, coffee shop on Main Street. 2 p.m. Be there. I stared at the screen. He wasn't asking. He was demanding. The old me, the version trained to keep the peace, to soften conflict, to be reasonable, might have shown up. This me didn't owe him an audience. I typed back, me, fine, 2 p.m. Then I blocked his number. Sunday rolled around. At 2:15, I drove past the coffee shop. He was sitting outside, hair gelled, shirt ironed, phone clenched in one hand, knee bouncing, waiting and waiting and waiting. I didn't stop. I drove to my new neighborhood, parked in my new spot, walked up to my new front door, unlocked it with my new key. My phone buzzed. Dylan, where are you? I've been waiting 30 minutes. I typed. Me, change my mind. A beat later. Dylan, you're such a jerk. I'm coming to the apartment. We're settling this today. I smiled. Softly. Almost kindly. Me. Okay. 20 minutes later, my phone blew up. Dylan, why is there furniture in the window? Whose stuff is this? Did you redecorate? Sloan, what's going on? I sent one message. Me. New tenants moved in. I moved out. Lease ended. Didn't I mention that? The typing bubbles popped up, disappeared, popped up again. Then, Dylan, you what? Where's your new address? I have stuff at your place. I exhaled slowly and sent the last message I would ever send him. Me. Your stuff left with you the night you chose her place. I don't owe you my forwarding address. Enjoy your life. Then I blocked him. This time for good. The next morning, a thick envelope arrived at my new place. No return address. Inside, 6 handwritten pages. 6 pages of delusion. Accusations. Revisionist history. A demand for $3,000 to rebuild what I destroyed. Threats to tell everyone the truth. Declarations of undying love. I photographed every page, then dropped the letter into the trash. I didn't look back when it landed. The envelope left a faint papery smell in my trash can, something oddly sweet, like old notebooks and desperation. I washed my hands afterward, not because it was dirty, but because it felt like residue. Emotional fingerprints I didn't want lingering on my skin. A few days passed, quietly, blessedly. My new apartment settled around me like a soft exhale. I hung curtains, made a grocery list, stocked my fridge with things I actually liked. My bed, with sheets no one else had ever slept on, felt like a reset button every night. It lasted a whole week, and then the next shock arrived. Not from Dylan, not from his mother, but from social media. A mutual friend sent me a message. You should see what he just posted. I blinked, thumb hesitating above the notification before tapping. Dylan had returned to the stage. He posted a long, florid essay on his profile. 6 paragraphs of tragic self-mythology about being financially abused, isolated, and left without a home. The post dripped with pathos, the kind designed to harvest sympathy like crops. He wrote words like trapped, controlled, emotionally devastated, nowhere to turn, trying to rebuild after a cruel betrayal. The comments poured in from people who didn't know either of us well. You poor thing, what a monster. You deserve so much better. She sounds dangerous. Stay strong, King. We've all dated psychos before. My phone buzzed nonstop. I sat on my couch, blanket draped over my legs, watching the outrage theater unfold in real time. He wanted an audience. He wanted a narrative. He wanted me to stay quiet while he reclaimed center stage as the tragic, misunderstood hero of his own story. I closed the post, opened my Photos app, and lifted the truth with the easy calm of someone picking up a glass of water. For 10 minutes, I composed my own post. Clean, factual, 0 insults, 0 drama, just timestamps and screenshots. Then I posted it publicly. Sloan Mercer, sharing this for clarity, not conflict. Dylan told me, twice, that he would be staying at another woman's apartment overnight and not to wait up. I believed him. I relocated his belongings to the address he gave me. He was not on my lease, did not pay rent, and was not a tenant. Police confirmed no illegal eviction occurred. Below are the messages as they were sent. Decide for yourself. I attached the screenshots, his words, his choices, his timeline. Nothing added, nothing embellished, just truth. The reaction was instant. Within minutes, the comments turned. Hard. So you left her for another girl? Bro, we were defending you for what? You told everyone half a story. This ain't abuse. This is consequences. Wow. She provided evidence. You didn't. Jimbro's comment sealed it. Yikes. And then the final blow. A comment from someone tagged B. Harris, Bri herself. Bree, don't drag me into your lies. We know what we were doing. Don't pretend otherwise. A pause fell over the entire thread. Dylan deleted his post within 20 minutes. Mine stayed up. Screenshots resurfaced in group chats. His narrative crumbled like wet paper. People who had defended him privately messaged me with gentle apologies. People who had believed him went quiet. Truth has weight. It doesn't shout. It just sits there, undeniable. 3 days later, another update surfaced, this time from mutuals who couldn't resist gossip. Dylan had moved in with Bree immediately after our breakup. Within 2 weeks, she kicked him out. Reasons circulating. He never cleaned. He never contributed financially. He expected her to fund meals and rides. He sulked whenever she asked to talk about boundaries. He spent more time complaining about me than bonding with her. Sounded familiar. He ended up back at his parents' house, an hour outside the city. Exactly the commute he'd always mocked. The symmetry of it was almost poetic. Life moved on. I decorated my new apartment one shelf at a time. My routine steadied. My work flourished. I got a small raise, then a larger project. My energy returned. With it came something gentler, quieter. Peace. Real, bone-deep peace. On a Thursday after work, I sat on my balcony with tea and watched the sun bleed orange across the sky. The city's noise hummed in the distance, softened by height and distance. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt unobserved, unclaimed, unburdened. My phone buzzed. A message from a mutual friend I actually cared about. Hey, would you want to meet someone? My coworker. He's stable, responsible, owns his own condo, has his life together. I think you two would get along. I smiled. Not because I needed someone, but because wanting someone again didn't feel like a risk. I met him 2 weeks later. His name was Grant. Software engineer. Warm brown eyes, clean apartment, 2 cats, a healthy 401k, and a gentle, grounded kindness. On our third date, sitting across from him in a quiet tapas bar, he asked about my last relationship. I told him the truth. He blinked once, then said, "So he told you he'd be staying at another woman's place overnight, and expected you to just be fine with that?" I lifted my wine glass. Exactly. He shook his head. The audacity. We laughed. A real laugh, one that reached my chest. Months later, the final loose thread of my old life tugged one last time. A friend request on social media. From Dylan's mom. I stared at the notification for a long moment, then clicked decline. Then block. Not with anger. Not with spite, but with clarity. The past had already taken enough space. It didn't get to take more. As I closed my laptop, the apartment felt impossibly quiet and impossibly mine. The dishwasher hummed in the kitchen. My spreadsheet glowed green. My lights were on timers I'd set myself. My life, finally, aligned with me, not built around someone else's chaos. Peace wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was simple. No one rattling my door. No one rewriting my reality. No one claiming ownership of a life they didn't contribute to. Just me, Sloan Mercer, 32 years old, and free.